I'm Julieta, and I'm here to show you how to make paper seed balls. It's a really simple and easy activity that anyone could do, so let's get started. There's three main steps we're going to look at, but first, let's look at materials. Is it snowing? Okay. You're going to need four things. Firstly, you're going to need paper. I suggest using recycled, reused, unneeded paper. I'm using this old newspaper. You're going to need some water. I would say at least a couple cups. Obviously, you're going to need seeds. We'll discuss a bit more about pollinator seeds and stuff like that in a minute. Finally, you're going to need a blender. Amounts may vary depending on how many seed balls you make. Step one, you're going to want to take your paper and you're just going to tear it up into a bunch of little scraps. You're going to want to tear them around the size, maybe a bit smaller. You don't have to be very precise. The pieces don't have to be too small, but big chunks won't be that useful. Some people like to soak the teared up pieces in water before putting it in the blender or food processor. I don't find that necessary at all. The good thing about these is you can make as many or as few as you want. I would say you want a good amount of paper so you have a proper pulp. So once you've made your paper into scraps, all you have to do is put it in the blender. Blender, scraps. So once you've got it in the blender, you're going to want to add some water. Be careful, you don't want to add too much water. Start with a little, then add as needed. So this looks pretty good. You don't want to end up with something smooth, rather more of a pulp. Again, add water as needed. Though it needs to be mushy, you still must be able to mold it. Don't discard the mush at the bottom either. It's still useful. Step 3, mold. What you're going to end up with once you get out of the blender is this kind of pulp. It's going to be kind of watery, so you might want to squeeze out some of that water so it's easy to manipulate. Squeeze them out one by one. It might feel kind of gross, but just remember it is wet paper. Just wet paper. Don't worry about it. I know it's squishy. I personally like the feeling. To make one seed ball, I would take about this much. I'm going to make a little well in the middle. This is where your seeds come into play. In that little well, you will place your seeds and roll the ball up. Then, if you've done it right, you'll have just a little ball. If your seed balls are dripping wet, leave them to dry before storing them. Some people like putting a little bit of soil in the seed ball. That's always a good idea. I don't tend to do it. The flowers that I plant don't tend to need it, as they are usually strong wildflowers. However, totally go ahead. Make sure you roll the seed balls quite compactly. Don't squeeze it so tight that nothing can move. You don't want that either, but just enough that it can hold its own, you know? The seed balls absolutely do not have to look perfect at all. There can be seeds kind of outside, inside, big, small, this and that. They're not meant to be perfect. They're meant to be thrown and then grown. So don't worry about making them super round and perfect unless you want to. Repeat this process of taking your pulp, squeezing out the water, making a little well, adding 1 or 2 seeds, rolling it back up. Do that as many times as you need. So it's that easy. So as for seeds, I have some brown-eyed Susan seeds with me. You can use basically anything. I really do encourage you to use pollinator flowers and native flowers. If you live in Canada and want to know more about what are pollinator flowers in my area, what do I plant, how do I make a pollinator garden, any of that, how do I tell a bee and a wasp apart? Anything like that, I really recommend checking out the David Suzuki Foundation and WWF Canada. There'll be links to all of that below. As you can see, there's definitely pollinators in my garden because the birds won't stop singing. So, nature, right? Very cute birds. See? Oh, there's like 5. So after all this, you may be wondering, what is even the purpose of a seed ball? Well, for one, it keeps the seed protected and moist. So even in a week, you can see little sprouts coming through. But the real purpose of a seed ball is to throw them. Why throw a seed ball? The idea is you can throw a seed ball on just empty soil and the seed will grow itself. This works sometimes. I think the seed balls do grow better if you just put some light soil on top of them. If you're growing them in your garden, I think that's a good way to do it. But I understand the fun part is throwing them. But as I said, the concept is that you throw them and the paper biodegrades, so they should work for that too. Throwing seed balls is often associated with the practice of guerrilla gardening, which is basically planting plants on vacant lots and places that would be useless otherwise, and now they can become beautiful and green spaces and useful for pollinators and help out the ecosystem. However, please don't go throwing your seed balls on people's property nor in natural parks, as you don't want to introduce an invasive species into an ecosystem. Why I'm jumping around making a fool of myself here is to show you some examples of spaces. If you see a space like this, you can always ask the owner of that space if they would like you to plant some flowers. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the tutorials in honor of Earth Week. If you do any of the activities, please send us pictures, videos, anything to greenteam@stgeorges.qc.ca. I will have her email below, and we'll share them. Or we won't. Whatever. If you're interested in more things having to do with sustainability, people, the planet, environment, animals, all those cool things, and how you can participate, what you can do about it, there goes my rainbow, please check out the Green Team newsletter. Our website is below. We have lots of cool things. Our Green Team newsletter provides accessible ways for people to do something to help our planet and also to engage with nature. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter as well as this channel, and thank you so much for watching. Bye! Last thing, I would recommend using your seed balls relatively quickly so they don't dry out, but they could even last up to a month, maybe even 2 months if they're stored properly, if they can stay damp. See you later!